Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. I picked the boathouse because it didn't exist on paper. No lease, no power bill, no name. I paid in cash, patched the roof myself, and kept the lights off. No connection. It wasn't meant to be a home. It was meant to disappear behind me the second I stepped inside, a place to stop being seen. But when I opened the door that night, Bianca was already inside. She sat at the small table I'd built from salvaged wood, hands folded, back straight, like she'd been waiting for hours, like she belonged there, like this was her story too. "Roger," she said, calm and steady. "You weren't supposed to be the one there that night." The sound of her voice hit me harder than the words. I hadn't heard it in months, but it came back sharp, too familiar, too composed. I stared at her. "Then who was?" She didn't hesitate. "Elias." My stomach turned. Her name for him, spoken aloud, twisted something deep in me. She'd used that name the night I left, and now here it was again, walking straight back into the place I'd built to escape it. "It started as something stupid," she said, "something I thought I could control. But it changed. He changed, and I couldn't get out. You could have told me. You left before I could." "Because I heard you," I said. "I heard you on the phone with him. You said enough." She looked down. "I know. And I know I lost you the second you walked out that door. But I still need you to understand. He didn't just use me. He used you too." I didn't move. I didn't speak. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thin folder, slid it across the table between us. I opened it. Account screenshots, transaction logs, authorization forms. My name was on 3 of them. "He used my devices," she said. "My access. He started forging transfers days after you left. He knew how you'd react. He counted on it. Once you were gone, he moved money through your name. Page after page, password resets, routing numbers, time-stamped requests I never made. Elias hadn't just stolen from her. He'd tried to erase me. If I had stayed, if I had forgiven her, I would have walked straight into the trap. 4 months earlier, I walked into my own house like a stranger. I'd come off the job early. Bianca always left a light on for me, our one small routine. That night, only one lamp was lit, the one in the bedroom. The rest of the house sat in darkness. There was no music playing, no clatter of dishes or humming from the kitchen. Just silence, and then her voice. Low, soft. The way she spoke when she was trying to be sweet. I froze in the hallway, just outside the bedroom door. Through the narrow crack, I could hear every word. "You can come over," she whispered. "He's still at work, and I can't wait to be with you, Elias." My hand tightened on the doorknob. I didn't need to hear more. That was all it took. No guessing, no hope, no second thoughts. I pushed the door open. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, phone glowing in her hand. She looked up and smiled like I was home 10 minutes early from work, not walking in on the end of everything. "You're early," she said. No surprise, not guilt, just a line she'd rehearsed. I looked at her, really looked, and I saw it all. The practiced calm, the detachment, the hollow where the truth should have been. I didn't answer. I didn't ask questions I already knew the answers to. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just looked at her face one last time, like a photograph I'd never look at again, then turned and walked out of the life I thought was mine. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't stop. I drove until the sky changed color. By morning, I was gone. No message, no warning. Some betrayals are too complete for words. I left without a note, an explanation, or a fight. My clothes were still in the closet, my badge on the counter, and my name in the mailbox. I knew if I opened my mouth, I'd say something I couldn't take back. So I didn't. I drove for hours. No destination, no plan. Just a string of highway exits and empty gas stations. I tossed my phone, didn't tell a soul where I was going. I paid for everything in cash. Motel rooms, used clothes, burner phones. Disappearing, it turned out, wasn't hard if you were already halfway invisible. In the days that followed, I cut every line that could lead back to me. Bank accounts closed. Social media wiped clean. The phone number I'd used for nearly a decade vanished with a SIM card I snapped in half and dropped in a truck stop trash can. I didn't just leave Bianca. I left Roger Whitman, the husband, the friend, the man who believed loyalty was stronger than temptation. That man didn't exist anymore. The world kept spinning, but I stepped off. For the first time in years, I existed in silence. I didn't check news feeds. I didn't wonder what Bianca was doing. I didn't think about Elias, at least not by name. But I thought about that moment in the hallway. Her voice, her softness, the way she said his name like it belonged to her. That was the echo I carried with me. Not anger, not heartbreak, just that voice. I thought I had buried every trace of who I was. But the thing about ghosts is, they don't need permission to find you. And somehow, she did. Not with lawyers, not with letters, not with guilt. Just by showing up, uninvited, sitting calmly at the table in the one place I thought was mine alone. Bianca had found the ghost, and she wanted to bring him back to life. After I saw the folder she'd brought, my name forged, my accounts touched, I asked her one question. How did you even get all this? She pulled out a folded piece of paper, a name scribbled in black ink. Nate Rowe, she said. He found me. Said he knew Elias. Said I wasn't the only one who got burned. You trust him? I don't know, she said. But he has more. Files. Audio. A full trail. He wants to meet tonight. I nodded. Didn't ask how much she'd told him. Didn't ask what else she was hiding. We drove in silence to a diner off the highway. The kind of place where time forgot the menu and no one asked questions. It was late enough that the booths were empty and the lights too bright. The only other customer was already waiting, alone nursing a black coffee. Nate Rowe. He didn't stand when we entered. Just looked up, eyes sharp but tired, like a man who had seen too much and expected very little. His jacket was worn, his fingers restless around the coffee cup. I slid into the booth across from him. Bianca sat beside me, stiff, her hands clasped too tightly. Rowe reached into his coat and placed a flash drive on the table. He did the same to my sister, he said. Charmed her, drained her, framed her. She didn't survive it. I said nothing. She wasn't the only one, he added, but she was the one that broke me. Bianca cleared her throat softly. Why come to us? Rowe turned his gaze to me. Because you're still breathing. Because you walked away before he could finish what he started. That folder she gave you, just the start. This, he tapped the flash drive, is the rest. I glanced at it, small, unassuming, but I already knew what was on it would scream. Transfers, voice clips, ledger entries, messages, timelines, Rowe said. Everything Elias tried to bury is on here, including how he used your name, your authorizations, your badge numbers. He was building a web around you. He forged everything? I asked. Used her access, your old credentials, even your photo on a few ID forms. If you'd stayed, it would have all stuck to you. Bianca shifted beside me, her voice low. Will this clear him? Rowe nodded. It clears both of you. But more importantly, it exposes Elias. No shadows left to hide in. I stared at the drive. All the ways Elias had tried to burn my life down, and now reduced to a few megabytes. All the destruction he almost pulled off, sitting silent in a plastic shell no bigger than a thumb. It wasn't just evidence. It was the final match. I stared at Bianca across the table. Not with hatred, not with forgiveness. Just distance. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but in presence. Like the weight of everything she'd carried had pressed her down 1 inch at a time. You weren't just unfaithful, I said. You let someone into our life who almost erased me. Her eyes didn't fight back. She didn't defend herself. She nodded once, slow, like she'd already rehearsed hearing those words and had no response left. I know, she said. And I believed her. She wasn't asking to be absolved. Not anymore. She wasn't trying to explain away what she did, or what it cost. I think, in her own way, she knew the moment had passed, that nothing she could say would ever reach back far enough to fix it. But this she could help end. I looked back at the flash drive sitting on the table, still untouched. A piece of evidence and a weapon, and it had my name written all over it, literally. I picked it up, slipped it into my jacket pocket, and stood. We're done here, I said. She didn't follow. She just watched me go. By morning, I'd sent the files. No note, no explanation, no return address. Just the truth, forwarded to state regulators, federal investigators, the compliance team at her old firm, and the task force that had been tracking financial exploitation cases across 3 states. It didn't take long. Within 48 hours, Elias Moretti's name was everywhere. Charges, freezes, seizures. He was no longer the man behind a curtain. He was front page, handcuffed, and cornered. The predator who used charm and stolen logins to destroy lives had finally been caught in the open. He hadn't just lost access to money. He lost the shadows. He lost the game. And somewhere, in a quiet booth off a quiet highway, I'd taken back what he tried to steal. Bianca never asked me to come back, and I didn't offer. We didn't have a dramatic final conversation or a long apology across the table. We didn't stand in the rain or argue in the driveway. We met in a plain room, signed the divorce papers, and left without shaking hands. It was over. It had been over for a long time. She didn't cry. Neither did I. There weren't any final words that could have meant more than what we'd already said, or failed to say. The silence between us was no longer sharp. It was just empty. A week after that, I heard through someone I used to work with that Bianca had lost her job. The compliance department didn't accuse her directly of anything illegal, but the optics were enough. Her name had been in too many emails, her login tied to too many access points. She hadn't been indicted, but she'd been tainted, enough to make her unemployable in the world she once thrived in. The same people who used to call her brilliant stopped replying to her messages. The friends who stood beside her at our wedding unfollowed her one by one. Her fall wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. It was quiet, systematic, the kind that doesn't make headlines but makes you invisible. She wasn't ruined, but she was marked. And I think that's what haunted her most. I never asked her where she went afterward, whether she stayed in the city or left altogether. I didn't check. I didn't look her up. It wasn't spite. I just no longer felt connected to her story. She'd chosen her path, and I'd walked away from it. I sold the boathouse. That chapter belonged to a man who had been hiding, a man who built walls instead of choosing direction, a man who let silence be his only defense. I wasn't that man anymore, and I had no use for the place that man called safe. Now I rent something small near the edge of town. A modest place, not much bigger than the boathouse, but different in every way that matters. No hidden entrances, no broken beams or blacked-out windows. It has power, a name on the lease, and my initials on the mailbox. I leave the lights on. Some nights I sit by the window and watch the street. Nothing dramatic ever happens. Just the occasional car, a dog walker, wind through the hedges. But there's peace in it. A rhythm I never knew I needed. I don't keep a photo of Bianca. Not because I hate her. I don't. What I feel for her now is harder to name. Something between understanding and indifference. She was a chapter, one I've already read, underlined, and closed. People always talk about closure like it's something someone gives you. A conversation, an apology, a reunion. But I learned something else. Closure isn't something you wait for. It's something you walk toward. Bianca spent months chasing the shadow of who I used to be. Following whispers, tracing my patterns, showing up in the one place I thought she'd never find. But when she finally did, she didn't find the man she remembered. She found someone else, someone quieter, harder, not cruel, but changed. She came looking for forgiveness, or maybe clarity, but I had already made peace with the past. I had already let go of the weight I used to carry, the betrayal, the anger, the hollow space where trust used to live. And the truth is, I didn't need to be saved. I just needed to stop running. Elias lost everything. Bianca lost almost as much, and I lost the life I thought I wanted. But in the space left behind, I found something else. Not redemption, not revenge, just freedom. The kind you only get when you've been broken all the way down and choose to start again, not as the man people remember, but as the man you finally recognize in the mirror. The one who chose to live. Thank you for watching. Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. I was at the shop late Thursday afternoon, finishing a steel railing order for a client, when my phone buzzed on the workbench. I wiped my hands and checked the screen. It was a message from my wife, Emily. It read, "Going on a last-minute trip with my ex, Noah. Don't be jealous." I stared at it for a few seconds, not because I didn't understand, but because it was so clean in its arrogance. A single sentence, casual and smug, meant to corner me. If I reacted with anger, I'd be the insecure husband. If I stayed silent, I'd be the fool who let her walk all over him. Either way, she thought she'd scripted my role in her little play. I picked up my phone and typed 2 words. Not at all. Then I set it back on the workbench and turned the grinder back on. Sparks flew from the metal in front of me while my head felt strangely clear. Emily believed this was a test, a push and pull to keep me in check. What she didn't realize was that it was the last line of an equation I'd been working out for months. The missed dinners, the just a friend late-night texts, the sudden need for space. It had all been pointing in one direction. That message was the confirmation I needed. I finished welding the last joint and shut off the machine. I slid my gloves off, put the piece on the rack, and started wiping down my tools. My decision was already made. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to close this chapter in a way Emily would never see coming. She thought I'd wait around for her to come back from her nostalgic getaway with Noah. What she didn't know was that by the time she returned, her home wouldn't be hers anymore. I pulled into the driveway that evening with one plan in my head: strip the house of everything that tied Emily to it. Not with anger, not in a frenzy, but with precision. When I opened the bedroom closet, I actually laughed under my breath. It looked more like a boutique than a home. Designer dresses, rows of shoes still in their boxes, handbags lined up like trophies. For years, I thought I was providing for a partner. Standing there, I realized I'd just been financing someone else's show. Each dress was folded, each pair of heels secured like inventory. I labeled the boxes with a black marker: Closet 1, Closet 2, Bathroom. Every couple of hours, I snapped photos of the contents. A full record. No arguments later about what went missing. By midnight, 18 boxes stood stacked against the wall. The bedroom looked bare, the bathroom counter empty, the walls cleared of the framed photos. It was almost therapeutic, watching her presence vanish piece by piece. The next step was securing my side of things. I pulled our financial documents, my business files, and the passport, and locked them in the safe. I changed the garage keypad and logged her devices out of the Wi-Fi. Clean separation. Before I called it a night, I shot a message to Olivia Martinez, a friend from college who worked as an attorney. Need a quick consult. Just want to make sure I'm handling something clean. Not urgent, but soon. She sent a thumbs up back. I leaned against the doorway of the now half-empty room and took a long breath. The house didn't feel heavy anymore. Emily thought she was testing me. She didn't know her test was already over, and I had scored the final paper. By Friday morning, the boxes were waiting like soldiers lined up in the living room. I wanted the final step done before she came back from her trip with Noah. I needed a destination. Luckily, Emily had already given it away. 2 weeks earlier, she'd posted a picture of a wine glass on Instagram tagged at the Arlo Lofts. I'd looked it up then, curious. A brand new building downtown. The kind of place Noah, with his tech job and expensive taste, would call home. I called a courier service I'd used before for delivering heavy custom pieces to clients. "I've got a load of personal belongings that need moving today," I told the dispatcher. "Pick up from my house, deliver to Arlo Lofts, Unit 12C. The name's Emily Harper. It's all boxed and ready." The driver showed up with a van around noon. I helped him load the boxes, one by one, into the back. When we finished, I handed him a sealed envelope to place on the top crate. Inside was a typed letter. "Noah, Emily's things are here. She prefers being with you now. Consider this a head start. Grant." An hour later, I had the confirmation. A picture of the boxes stacked neatly outside 12C, the apartment number visible in the frame. The timestamp read 1:42 p.m. Perfect. I forwarded the image to Emily with a single line. "Your delivery arrived." No reply. Just silence. Back at the house, I walked into the empty bedroom. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't sharing space with someone who treated me as an option. Emily thought she was coming back to her home. She had no idea she'd already been moved into Noah's. Saturday morning started with the locksmith pulling into the driveway right on time. I greeted him with coffee in hand and a clear order. Every lock, every code, every point of entry needed to be reset. By noon, the front door had a new deadbolt, and the garage keypad was reprogrammed. When he left, I stood in the living room and looked around. The house was stripped of Emily's clutter, but still felt hollow. Rearranging was next. Room by room, I adjusted the place until it matched my style again. Clean, simple, functional. The spare bedroom had always been crammed with her seasonal wardrobes and holiday decorations. Now it was bare, waiting for a purpose. I thought of my cousin, Maya, who'd just started her first year teaching high school English 2 towns over. She'd been complaining about the 2-hour commute and the rent draining her paycheck. I called her. "Maya," I said, "how would you feel about cutting your commute down to 20 minutes? She laughed. "I'd feel like you just handed me back half my life. I've got a spare room now. Rent-free for a year. Just chip in on bills. You in?" She was stunned silent for a moment. Then, "You're serious?" "Dead serious. Pack a carload. Move in today if you want." She showed up with 2 suitcases, a stack of lesson plans, and the kind of gratitude I hadn't felt from Emily in years. As we carried her things inside, she looked around the cleared-out house and said, "It feels calm here, like it's waiting for a reset." She wasn't wrong. The house finally felt like mine, and soon it would feel alive again, with someone who actually belonged there. That night, sitting on the porch, I checked my phone. No word from Emily. Just silence, stretching longer and heavier. I knew it wouldn't last. The unraveling was coming. By Sunday morning, the silence broke. My phone lit up with 3 voicemails in a row, all from Emily. The first one was sharp, her voice high-pitched. "Grant, what did you do? Why are my things at Noah's place? Call me back right now. This isn't funny." The second came an hour later, shakier. "Listen, I don't know what kind of point you're trying to make, but this went too far. We need to talk. I'll be back tonight. Just don't make this worse." Not long after, another voicemail came through. This time, Noah. His tone was clipped and angry. "Grant, I don't know what game you think you're playing, but all these boxes are not my problem. You need to come get them. Emily is a mess, and I don't want her living here. Handle it." I let them all sit in the inbox. No replies. Around noon, my phone buzzed again. It was Ava Brooks, one of Emily's closest friends. We hadn't spoken in months. "Grant," she said quickly, "Emily's panicking. She says you locked her out and dumped her stuff. Can we just talk about this?" "I'm not discussing my marriage with you, Ava," I said evenly. "Emily made her choices. I just helped move her things where she wanted to be." There was a pause. Then a sigh. "You've really done it, haven't you?" "Yes," I said. "And it's finished." Later that afternoon, I heard from a mutual acquaintance who'd been at the retreat. According to him, the so-called creative weekend ended in chaos. Noah wasn't interested in playing house, not with 18 boxes staring at him. By Saturday night, Emily was in tears, begging Noah to let her stay. By Sunday morning, he'd ordered her into a cab and told her to find somewhere else to land. While all that unfolded, I was at home with Maya, assembling shelves in the spare room for her books and supplies. The contrast wasn't lost on me. One life was collapsing. The other was just starting to grow. It was close to midnight when the video doorbell lit up. I checked the feed on my phone and saw Emily on the porch, suitcase at her side, fumbling with her old key. When the lock didn't turn, her face twisted from confusion to panic. She knocked hard, then started shouting, "Grant, open the door! My key doesn't work! What the hell is going on?" I tapped the intercom. "Can I help you?" Her head snapped up to the camera. "Don't play games. Let me in. This is my house, too." "Not anymore," I said, calm and even. "You made your choice when you left with Noah. Your things are already at his place." "That was just a trip," she shouted. "It didn't mean anything. You can't just lock me out." "I didn't lock you out," I replied. "I facilitated your move. You wanted to be with him. I made sure you had everything you needed." Her voice cracked. "It wasn't like that. It was one weekend, Grant. You've gone insane." I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch until the only sound was her banging on the door. Then the hallway light flicked on behind me, and Maya appeared, rubbing her eyes. "Everything okay out here?" she asked, half asleep. Emily froze. She couldn't see her, but she heard her, a woman's voice, calm, familiar, belonging inside the home that Emily thought was still hers. Proof that the space she once claimed had already been filled. "We're fine, Maya," I said. "Go back to bed." She nodded and disappeared down the hall. Emily's shoulders slumped. the fight drained out of her. She sat on the porch steps, sobbing. No anger left, no bargaining power, just the sound of someone realizing they'd burned their last bridge. I watched her through the camera for a while, feeling nothing. Not pity, not satisfaction. Just a final, quiet certainty. Eventually, she dragged her suitcase down the driveway and disappeared into the dark. The house stayed silent, exactly how I wanted it. By Monday morning, my inbox had a long email from Emily. It read like a tug of war with herself. The first half was anger, accusations that I was cruel, that I'd humiliated her. The second half was desperate, apologies, promises to change, begging for just a few weeks until she got back on her feet. She claimed she was staying at a cheap motel, that her friends wouldn't take her in, and that Noah had told her to lose his number. I read the whole thing once, then typed a single sentence. "Your choices are not my responsibility." That was it. No lecture, no insults, no opening for negotiation. I hit send. I blocked Emily's number and set up an email filter to send her messages straight to trash. Clean slate. Maya noticed the change in me that evening. She was at the dining table grading papers when she looked up and said, "You seem lighter today." "I am," I said. "It's finished." She smiled, not prying, and went back to her work. I sat across from her, sorting invoices for my business. The house was quiet, grounded, steady. For the first time in a long time, it felt like I wasn't waiting for the next fight, the next manipulation, the next test. Emily had tried to push me into a corner. She thought she was the one holding the cards. Now she was sitting in a motel room, while her place in my life had been erased and replaced with someone who actually appreciated it. That was the consequence she never expected. Not rage, not a screaming match, but silence. 3 weeks later, we faced each other in a small family courtroom. The process was quiet, efficient, stripped of drama. Papers were passed across the bench, signatures made, and the terms confirmed. The house, my business, and all shared accounts remained in my name. Emily left with only the belongings already moved from the house. 3 years of marriage reduced to 20 minutes of procedure and a stamped order. The chapter had closed cleanly, leaving nothing unsettled. Weeks passed. The house no longer felt like a stage for constant tension. It was quiet, functional. Maya settled into her new routine, leaving early each morning with stacks of lesson plans, coming back late with stories from her students. She filled the house with a kind of steady, grateful energy that Emily never managed to bring. Work picked up too. A local gallery commissioned me to design a steel staircase for their new exhibit. I spent long hours in the shop, cutting, welding, measuring, the kind of work that always gave me focus. One night, I sat on the porch with a beer and scrolled through old photos on my phone. I stopped at the screenshot of Emily's text, the one that had detonated everything. "Going on a last-minute trip with my ex, Noah. Don't be jealous." For a long moment, I just looked at it. Then I deleted it. No need to keep the reminder. The chapter was already closed. Emily had gone searching for freedom. She thought it meant keeping me tethered while she chased nostalgia with Noah. But freedom came in a different form. For her, it meant standing outside locked doors and sleeping in motels. For me, it meant silence, space, and a house that finally felt like home. In the end, she was left drifting, and I was standing solid. The power had shifted, and the best part was, I didn't need to raise my voice once. Thank you for watching.